like, you can call me Ursa, and this week should probably actually be entitled Stuff You Think Is Kind of Stupid But Still Pretty Funny, because we're reviewing The Scorpion King. I talked very little about The Scorpion King, aka Matthias, aka Dwayne The Rock Johnson, in my review of The Mummy Returns last week, and for good reason. While the bracelet MacGuffin is important to the plot and King Scorpio is the big bad who has to be defeated at the end, there's too much plot in the film to allow us to spend any time with him. Also because I hadn't actually seen the whole film yet. The Scorpion King appears in The Mummy Returns as himself for the first 5-ish minutes, as a CGI monster for a few minutes at the end, and that's really about it. No character development, no real plot, just a monster who sold his soul to Anubis, the devil, Anubis, and mark my words, we are going to be talking about that, and who needs to be defeated. And is. Quite handily. But sequels, as we have said before, make money. The Mummy was released in 1999, The Mummy Returns was released in 2001, but Tomb of the Dragon Emperor wasn't released until 2008, so to tide us over in the middle, we got a prequel instead. 2002, The Scorpion King. Yeah, I'm getting the feeling they made this one in kind of a rush. In fact, they had to shoot extra scenes for it because the original cut clocked in at just 70 minutes. As Cracked.com so eloquently put it, prequels suck for a number of reasons. Included among these are that the characters have to be less interesting to make sense, and that we have what is basically the opposite of suspense, because we know who lives and who dies, they have to make it to the next movie. But with the Scorpion King, the only thing we knew about his character from The Mummy Returns is that he was a monster who liked killing and conquering. So, he wasn't really that complex a villain to begin with. He could have had a whole interesting life before he got to making the decision to sell his soul to... You know what, we're gonna get this out of the way, right? The ancient Egyptian gods are sometimes a kinda cranky lot, but they're not particularly capricious, and Anubis in particular was not dark.
The Scorpion King made a pact with the dark god Anubis.
He's the god associated with the afterlife and with mummification, yeah, but he's not the devil. In fact, quite the opposite. He sits in judgment upon you and weighs your heart to see if you are fit for the afterlife.
He would give him his soul.
Your heart, please note, because the concept of a soul, which is separate from the body, is a distinctly Greek thing. Look, if they'd wanted a cranky Egyptian god, they could have just had Set. Set! You could have had Set. He was perfect. He's the god of darkness, chaos, storms, and foreign people. Right. I feel better. Moving on. There are 3 Scorpion King prequels. Yeah, 3. We're only doing the first one because I'm not a masochist. As prequels go, the concept certainly has more potential than a prequel of, say, Rick or Evie. I guess a prequel of Jonathan or Ardeth Bay would work, maybe, but you still run into the problem of prequel characters having to be necessarily less interesting than they are when we see them in the originals. This prequel allows the future Scorpion King to be more interesting and to delve into the things that make him make the choices that he makes. Too many makes in that sentence. But we kind of threw all of that out of the window for reasons that I will get to later. Back to our original prequel of our franchise spawned by our remake. Memnon is our big bad who has a big army and also has a sorcerer who can predict the outcomes of battles, and this apparently means he can beat everyone. Slaughter happens. The last of the free tribes band together to oppose him, led by an old king guy, but no mortal can defeat Memnon while he has his magical helper. So they hire the last of the Akkadians to kill the sorcerer. And then everyone else will happily fight the now just a regular dude Memnon.
As long as one of us still breathes, the sorcerer will die. Him, we'll kill for free.
The script is funny, it has to be said. It's not particularly strong, and the actors' performances often don't really help it, but it is funny. They go to a place where the sorcerer lives at night, and there's rock music and zip wires and sword fighting, and then everybody else dies. And then the sorcerer is, in fact, a beautiful woman. Oh my goodness, I did not see that coming. Matthias, by the way, you are a pants assassin. You are drawers at it. You should have just killed her. Equal opportunities assassination, that's all I'm saying. But then she knows who he is and tells him that he's been betrayed. The old king is dead. The son of the old king is the traitor. The last Akkadian other than Matthias dies. Luckily, the sorceress has the hots for Matthias, and so they don't kill him directly, and so he can escape. With a new sidekick in tow. Yay. They go to Gomorrah, and Matthias ends up kidnapping the sorceress in order to lure Memnon out of his palace. Also while in the palace, he meets a white guy with a trebuchet, or a ballista? One of the two. Oh, and Chinese gunpowder. Have I mentioned that this movie is a complete anachronism stew? You will not learn anything about history by watching it. Well, you will, but it'll all be in the wrong time period. But it doesn't matter. As it turns out, Memnon does not leave the palace to come after the sorceress, he just sends his guards after them. So there's another fight scene, and then there's an oasis, and then they meet the tribes, and then everybody gangs up together, and then the sorceress is like, I'm gonna go back to Memnon, otherwise all these people are gonna die. The free tribes sneak into the palace, there is a lot of fighting, and they win, and he becomes the Scorpion King, and that's the end of the movie. Unfortunately, he's not actually our Scorpion King. Stephen Sommers, the guy responsible for The Mummy Returns, said that he thought that Matthias was just too heroic to turn into the Scorpion King. So the Scorpion King that we see in The Mummy Returns is actually Matthias's identical grandson or something. So this entire prequel is kind of pointless as a setup to The Mummy Returns. Therefore, we must examine it on its own merits. In this film, there is not a great deal of plot. Or, specifically, there is a plot, but there's only one. There aren't really any major subplots. If The Mummy Returns sort of overshot by trying to tell too many stories at once, then The Scorpion King kind of undershot. They're very sparse, plot-wise. A small amount of character development does occur. These two dudes becoming friends, and some talk about destiny.
Will you stand alone before the fury of his armies? Yes. I make my own destiny.
We're talking about destiny and personal agency in my 50th episode, so but the Scorpion King is in fact fight scene, flashback type war scene, talking, sneaking about, fight scene, escape from death, fight scene, escape from death, fight scene, scenery porn, fight scene with dude bro, swoodly pooping, sneaking about, fight scene intercut with snake scene, fight scene, end. We do get some foreshadowing, I guess.
The poison was made with scorpion venom. If he does live, the blood of the scorpion will always flow through his veins.
Which sets up his or his identical grandson's future mad scorpion powers. But it ends with him as a king, and happy, and notably not conquering the known world. Anyway, the acting is variable. It ranges from fine to describe this as Wooden would have the FSC sue me for slander. The horse thief annoys me and seems completely superfluous to the plot. I do like Isis. I think she's pretty cool. She seems to be an Amazon, which is another element of the complete anachronism stew, but again, this movie runs on rule of cool, not rule of historical accuracy, so I don't really care. There is a requisite plucky child character, but like Alex in The Mummy Returns, we do keep him mostly out of the way, and so he's not vastly annoying. I don't think this movie is bad, I just don't think it's very good. I mean, it's not eye-tearingly, soul-crushingly awful, but it doesn't really captivate me enough to go on my to-rewatch list. I will end with a quote from TV Tropes, which to my mind sums up the whole movie. Artistic license, physics. If the first 5 minutes of The Scorpion King does not have you in tears of laughter, you have no sense of humour. See you next week for Mummies That Aren't, Evie That Isn't, and the remarkably well-preserved parents of a 26-year-old.
You watch yourself, Octavian.
No need for concern, miss.
Oh, he's gonna pay for that.